This is Trophy Dark, the Flocculent Cathedral, Part 2. Saint who spilled their blood for me, lain in flocculent reverie, I seek your light upon my brow. I would be your trophy now. Chained within this dank domain, your relics, all that I retain, all your teachings I avow. I would be your trophy now. This foul entombment of your will, I would not see you slumber still. No quarter to what men allow. Take me as your trophy now. Ring 3. You all press forward beyond this little row of shrines, beyond the swarm of bugs, deeper into the gloaming mire. You come across the remains of a campsite atop a vast bed of turquoise moss. Ragged, rotting bits and pieces of tattered, trampled gear scattered all over it. There's a powerful smell of animal musk hanging in the air. And up ahead, you hear the sounds of something rustling the tree leaves. Something in the tree leaves, or tall enough to rustle the tree leaves. There is, at a certain point, a wide, shallow pool, quite wide, perhaps 60 feet across, and you see that it is filled to overflowing with clutches of frog eggs the size of fat grapes. And near that, a handful of ancient, ancient practice dummies stand in the ankle-deep bog. They have been impaled with rusting swords and rotting arrows, and sprays of dark red moss grow from the wounds in a pattern reminiscent of bloodstains. This has been a very, very trying day. You all had to exert yourselves quite a bit to get through the bug swarm, and even the brief reprieve at the shrines was not enough to give you the rest that you need. And I think you all just, in short order, one by one, begin to collapse from exhaustion, perhaps even from a strange fever from all the bug bites. But in any case, you are each struck by fever dreams of drowning and disintegration before a myriad of mandibles and stingers. I suppose for Gaspar, it is a pleasant dream, not a nightmare. When you awake,
if not unpleasant, at least he's kind of giving himself to the.
Yeah. When you wake up after this brief, unintentional rest, I'm going to ask you each about another one of your fellow treasure hunters. And the question is going to be the same, though, for everyone. What outward manifestation of the swarm's malignancy lingers in the treasure hunter you're looking at? And how will it threaten your success if not kept in check? I think there's a pretty easy one here for Laura, because I think most of you have seen Laura's slug tongue at this point. So that'll be the softball one, which I'll toss over to Gaspar. Gaspar, is there some other outward manifestation of the swarm's malignancy that might threaten the success of the mission that Laura is exhibiting?
I think Gaspar's disturbed by how hard everyone found it to deal with these bugs, and their equipment is kind of plastered now with their clothing is plastered with kind of where they've been swatting bugs, so there are dead bugs all over everyone's gear and clothing, And Gaspar just kind of moved through this cloud of insects, welcoming them. It's uncomfortable to him, but at the same time, in his mind, he finds this a welcome way to a welcome trial for himself. And he fears that the other three are not up to the trial. The bugs, these are just bugs, and they almost brought the other three to a halt. What will the greater dangers ahead of us do?
Laura, I'll ask you the same question, but specifically about Gaspar. How does Gaspar threaten the success of reaching the Flocculent Cathedral?
This is a little bit hypocritical, but when we were walking through the bug swarm and Gaspar was allowing these bugs all over him and into him, Laura feared that he's becoming too much a part of the forest. And if he becomes too much a part of the forest, then that is a definite threat if we need to get to where we need to go and take what we need to take. He might not allow us. Then again, Laura is also becoming a little bit a part of the forest.
Well, speaking of Laura, at 5 Ruin, do you want to surreptitiously act on keeping Gaspar in check in order to get a reduction roll?
Yes, please.
What do you do?
Trying to think of what my options are here. I think trying to think of how I can use my carve ritual, because I really want to use that. I
Anyone has any
think
ideas, by all means, jump in.
if nobody has any ideas, I think if Rob
What
is
can you
okay with
subtract?
this,
What can
I'm
you
thinking like a
subtract?
couple of toes, keep him a little bit, slow him up a bit. It's not going to kill him.
That's
You
actually
don't
pretty
need
good.
all of your toes.
I like it. Let's do the reduction roll just to see if you are noticed or not. So let's have that. Oh,
And that is just the / reduction.
yes. Okay, so no one, your ruin goes down, and Gaspar is not aware that you did this, but I am curious what the ritual looks like.
I think it's very quiet. It takes a lot of concentration. You have to, Laura imagines a foot, looking at where Gaspar's feet are, seeing the boots that he's wearing, imagining a foot inside of that, how the toes touch the edge of the boots, how they would move if he was kind of crinkling his toes up. And she is imagining if somebody took a very sharp, very hot knife and just quickly sliced. Hot enough that maybe you would cauterize as it goes.
I love it.
But oh, those toes are going to rattle around in there.
That's an automatic ruin roll for Gaspar. Go ahead and roll ruin, Gaspar.
My ruin is going up.
Your ruin is going up. What do you do once you realize that, like, you feel this, like, at first a quite sharp pain and then a dullness in your boots?
Yeah, Gaspar reaches down and starts to haul his boots off, and while we were wading through the swampy area, he had them strung around his neck, but he put them back on later once we cleared that. But now he fears that maybe his boots must have got somewhat damp, and he pulls one off, and then immediately notices that his toes are left behind in the boot.
You notice a little bit more than that, in fact. Your remaining toes have started to fuse together as if to make the early stages of a cloven hoof. That's your condition for your rune going up. This is a private horror, and so I shall kick over to Kel. Kel, you have seen Torum's magic in action, saved you. And yet, there is an outward manifestation of the swarm's malignancy that disturbs you. What is it?
I mean, I can see the crawling of the bugs underneath the skin. He experienced something. They were able to get inside, and it is quite uncomfortable to watch.
Torum. Kel is the only one of you who does not venerate a saint, at least not a saint that's generally recognizable, being a follower of an entity called Kalesha, a three-faced magic spirit. I'm curious how you feel about that, and if you think it's a danger to the mission.
I don't think that I put just a ton of stock in what people believe, or even talk about believing in, like spirits, saints, gods, whatever. Like, all that really matters is what you can accomplish with your own hands and what you can use to scrape a living, and whether you can keep up. So I'm not worried about this three-faced thing that Kel maybe talks about, maybe doesn't. I haven't heard Kel talking about it just a ton. Maybe they're saying things in their fever dream about it. What I'm concerned about is I think I wake up before Kel and see that Kel is like covered from head to toe in a thin webbing. And it's like, that's going to be a problem, and that's maybe gonna slow us down.
You will all see that. Everyone make a ruin roll, please. Everyone but Kel. Sorry, to be clear. Laura, are you right back at 5? The knife's edge. Looks like Gaspar's okay. How did Torum fare on the ruin roll?
Sorry, my Discord is updating.
Okay, you just roll d6 if you want.
My ruin does not go up.
Laura, how do you feel upon seeing Kel covered in spider webs? And more importantly, how does your tongue react?
What time of day is it?
It is still late in the afternoon, but because the tree cover is so thick, it's darker than that.
Okay. Laura looks over at Kel, at her very still body and sees this webbing and sees how it's sort of glistening in the very dim sunlight that does get through, sort of like dew on grass. And she is struck by how beautiful it looks, how peaceful it looks. And the slug in her mouth reacts accordingly. It gets a little excited. It starts to move around and sort of force its way out of her mouth and point its little doodads towards Kel, as if trying to reach over and taste what this must be like.
Cal, what are you doing when you realize what's happening to you?
He wakes up like that. He wakes up out of a dream of seeing himself perform with the webs when it was just on his hand, and stretching them out and using them almost as streamers, as the emerald spiders were acting as little metals or jewels to accent his performance. And they were swarming over his body as he moved and sinuously entertained those that were watching him. He was at the swirling court. He could see all of their smiling, laughing faces, and they were enjoying what he was doing. And he wakes out of this dream realizing that the streamers have suddenly turned into a shroud with no spiders in sight. And it's almost like he's coming up for air. So he wakes up with a gasping scream.
We can keep having this scene if we want, or I can move on. But if anybody has anything they want to say or keep the scene going with, by all means, do so.
He's tearing out of it, but yeah, he's in shock.
Yeah, I think Gaspar will go over and help Kel. But also, as he does that, we see a couple of the spiders kind of disappear up inside of Gaspar's cloak.
He sees that. Kel sees that. And he's immediately reaching through the webbing and, those are mine. Give them back.
What's the matter with you two?
They go where they wish, Kel, but certainly if they wish to return to you. And he puts his hand on Kel, and a spider comes running back down his arm,
And his hand is outstretched and receiving it back.
I'm glad to see you're accepting these gifts.
They're all I have right now.
Worry.
They're all I have.
In the end,
And starts tearing off starts tearing off the whatever webbing is on him to try to get up. What happened?
We rested. Do you not feel more energized? Laura picks up a little piece of the webbing and puts it in her mouth.
I hope that's as delicious as it looks.
And she just smiles.
Torum, it seems like your companions are all losing their minds. What are you doing in the meantime?
Yeah, finding no one to confide in, Torum starts to mutter to himself about the bad business he's gotten himself in. And he goes over to the dummies and starts to look around the hilts for any precious gems or possibly unrested precious metal that could be recovered.
Yeah.
All the while kind of scratching and poking at his upset skin.
Yes, indeed, indeed. It is not all horror in the gloaming mire. You are each going through your packs, perhaps for a bit of food before you continue the next trek of your journey. When you each discover something somewhere on your person or amongst your gear that a loved one or friend has included, a physical token to remind you of your drive. Each of you, what do you discover, and what one or two sentence memory does it evoke?
Laura is digging through her pack and she pulls out what is essentially a postcard. It has a little painted image of a very wondrous marketplace. You could see this painting is very vivid with lots of colors. You could see all the different stalls and people with everything you could possibly imagine, both mundane and otherwise. And at the bottom of the picture, it says Cormoran's Wheel. And when you flip over the card, it simply says, "To Laura, wish you were here." And the signature is of Laura's longtime friend, or possibly somebody she was always a little bit competitive with as well, a different artist, an artist who made it, essentially, who went to this marketplace and became a part of it and became an extremely successful, extremely talented artist. And Laura feels that tinge of jealousy ride through her, and it kind of solidifies her desire to be here in this forest to get what she needs to do in order to at least, if not gain, hopefully gain back the desire to become more inspiration for her art, but also to maybe get a little one up on this person she knows.
Indeed, indeed. Gaspar?
Gaspar finds a tattered, worn piece of parchment, and it contains just some scrawled text in a tiny, tiny writing. And this was given to him by, or something he took from the person who tattooed him after he'd decided to seek out more information, more knowledge of the cult of Darawan. And it's almost like a little mantra that's written in tiny, tiny text that he can unroll and roll up. And even though it's dirty and worn, it's one of his most carefully guarded possessions.
Thank you. Torum or Kel?
In the pack, Torum finds this good luck charm, or kind of possibly even like a dowsing charm for for treasure that belonged to his brother. Torm's mom must have put it in his pack before he left because he didn't put it there. But the charm is like a ruined or ramshackle little bundle of bird bones. It's like a corvid, like a raven or a crow, and it's as the bird would seek and find treasure. It's supposed to help you seek and find treasure.
Nice.
Kel finds buried in his pack a very crumpled letter from one of his old mistresses who actually, if she cared, then she cared enough to at least send him a missive saying, "Dear Kel, wishing you were here. Lady Romanthamina." And there's a lip print stained with berry juice and the symbol of the swirling court scribbled on the bottom.
So passes ring 3. Let's take a 5-minute break. Ring 4. You are in a part of the gloaming mire that is just thick, gnarled cypress trees, draped with copious amounts of moss of all sorts. It is very easy to get separated in this part of the mire, and there are thick networks of roots underfoot, or under hoof, as the case may be, Gaspar. Laura, at a certain point, you are aware, and only you are aware, of a woman standing between a pair of trees. The upper half of her body to the shoulder is covered in shadow. You cannot make out her features. You know this is Daris, the mother of shadows. And she speaks to you. She says, "Daughter of shadow, you must reach the cathedral before they do. Follow my path I have laid out for you. Cross through the darkened threshold. Walk the shadowy path, and you will reach it first." And then she kind of like pans over. She's, kind of waves her hand over to show you this particularly dark, shadowy path that she says will be the quickest way to the cathedral. It will separate you from the group, probably until you reach the cathedral, but it will count as a reduction roll as well. If you take
Laura silently stands up. I don't think she even gathers that much out of her stuff. She doesn't put her pack all back together, just whatever she can quietly put together quickly. And the slug in her mouth is moving around excitedly. And she feels that excitement in herself, trying to keep herself quiet. And I'm going to use Night Walk to try and move untraceably through the darkness, at least until I'm out of range of the rest of the group so they can't hear me leave.
Just make
I
the
don't want
reduction
them
roll.
to follow.
Make the reduction roll. That'll determine how well you do or don't do. Whether you get seen. You slip away.
And
You
my
can give us-
ruin goes down.
Your rune goes down, yeah.
Right.
And the rest of you will not notice Laura sneak off, but you know, perhaps instinctively, that you will not see her again, even if you find her blade between your ribs. You will not see her again. The three of you are on your own now to reach the cathedral. Gaspar, as you are trying to traverse this root system, is it easier with your cloven feet? Are you keeping your cloven feet hidden from the group with your boots, or are you letting the roots and bog do that?
No, I think Gaspar is not making any attempt to hide it. In fact, the first thing he did when we broke camp was to take his boots and throw them deep into the forest. He won't be needing them any longer. And I think-
Torum will confront Gaspar when this happens,
Do
and
so.
after Laura has disappeared. What's the meaning of all this? You've been more in league with everything that's out here since before we even set out. What's your plan? And how do you reveal this monstrosity to us now? This is an ill omen.
Kel reaches out and grabs Torum's arm and kind of swings him around a bit and says, he's able to snuff out light and create darkness. You didn't think this was a possibility at all this time?
If we wish to penetrate the heart of this forest, we must also let it penetrate us. We must allow it in.
Torum is like scratching at a spot. You're in league with it. You're going to sacrifice us to it. This was your plan the whole time. Don't you see it, Kel?
At this point, we are all a sacrifice. We came here of our own volition. We all wanted something, including you.
We cannot reach the heart of this forest without giving something of ourselves to it. We cannot stand apart from it.
Gaspar, as you listen to your companions' protestations and exhortations, you notice a woman up ahead. In the trees. She bears a golden shovel, and she has dirt on her fingers and the hem of her gown. And you know it is Saint Daphne, the saint of ditch diggers. She puts the shovel across her chest in the way that the saints are frequently seen. With her other hand, she beckons. Do you come?
Yes.
You walk away from the group, perhaps seemingly in anger, but you know why, in truth. And Saint Daphne, she says, my child, I have something wonderful to show you. Your piety has earned you a blessing. Come quickly. And she leads you through the cypress trees to a trench, a great big trench, perfectly dug, almost smooth on the sides. and about 10 feet deep, and about twice as long, and half as wide. This deep rectangular trench, she says, a holy trench, a divine ditch. I have dug this for you, Gaspar. You have but to crawl down in it and cover yourself in the mud and the worms, and you will receive the blessings of the gods. Do you?
I think Gaspar just smiles slightly and kind of almost slithers over the edge of this trench and down into it.
You very quickly realize that the bottom of it is sucking mud, and you are being pulled down, and quite rapidly you're hip deep in this pit. And the entire time she's smiling at you radiantly. There's a shaft of light cutting through the tree canopy, illuminating her. And she says, "This is a trial, my child. And if you can survive it, you will prove yourself worthy to represent me at the cathedral." And we'll come back to that in a moment. Torum and Kel, you two are frequently left alone, but just the two of you. You go a little further, perhaps, when you see a group of men, a trio of them, around a long dead fire, sitting on tree stumps. These men are bloated and reeking of rot. In fact, you smell them before you see them. They are covered in hundreds of black and purple mushrooms that look like ugly bruises sprouting everywhere from their skin, and they are grotesque and bloated. And they're sitting around their dead campfire, making gestures and vocalizations as if they are just a trio of treasure hunters having a rest. But their conversation is entirely unintelligible. You just hear the wet, tongue-choked sounds emanating from their gullets. Both of you please make a ruin roll. What'd you get? Looks like you're both going up. That is a 6 and a 5 dark, and each of your ruin is going up by 1. Kel, what do you do?
It's disturbing, for sure. He's half of the mind to blow something up, to just figure out what looks the weakest and just fault it to bloody hell.
Here is a quick out of character reminder in case, well, I don't think I ever said it, but we should say it now. If you combat a monstrosity in Trophy Dark, you die automatically.
Oh, sure. But I mean, again, it's like, you know, he's
definitely would, though.
He's thinking. He's not really, like, you know, working it out.
Though. Yeah.
Right. But he's also of the mind to see if he can communicate using voice. But again, he's just not sure. He's just agog at what is this?
One of them turns and makes eye contact with you and says, "Come."
Look at it, Kel. Look at the horror. Gaspar's last victims.
The other one turns and says, "Tom, Kel and Tom."
Can you do nothing for them, Kel? Can you not even put them out of their misery?
I don't even know what I'm looking at. Do
Let me
you?
make this even a little more interesting. They are calling your names in their horrible way, and you see that each of them, the three, bears a faint resemblance to each of you and Gaspar, not Laura. I am curious what you see that makes you think you might be looking at some future vision of yourselves.
As I'm gesturing with my axe for Kel to do something about them, I see next to the one that like called out my name is laying a similar rusted axe.
The one that called out Kel's name has the remaining tatters of the swirling court shirt, and from underneath the mushrooms, Kel can see his jacket, the tatters of his jacket.
That's sharp enough to provoke a ruin roll, Kel. This might be the end of you if you roll a 6. But you did not. How do you feel?
Horrified. Stock still. I mean, his hands are out to his sides, like as if to try to find some sort of support, some sort of grounding, and he's got nothing. He doesn't have the shirt. He doesn't have visions of what to do next. He's just staring at this unfortunate
You're at ruin
tableau.
5 now, which means you are now able to do reduction rolls by betraying here just Torum. But do you wish to do that?
Out of character, no. But in character, yes.
Well, it could be out of character, yes, if you want your ruin lowered.
Yeah.
So.
I think after a moment you realize Torm has been like screaming at you, like trying to get your attention. And it's just like shell shock silence.
The things have gotten up at this point, and they are lumbering towards you. And they look, one of them is actually holding up a parchment of some sort, a map perhaps, and with a purple bloated finger is tapping the page, trying to get your attention, trying to tell you something. This time is about war. Kel and Torum, what do you do?
We can't
Torm's
tell.
like trying to like push you and get you to moving, and Torm's like trying to flee.
Hold that thought. Gaspar. I haven't forgotten about you, Laura, but Gaspar. You are sinking in this mud rapidly, and Saint Daphne is beatifically smiling, urging you to survive the trial so that you can be worthy to enter the cathedral under her aegis. How do you try to save yourself right now?
Gaspar allows himself to sink for quite a long time until the mud is covering his chin, and then it starts to enter his mouth and nose. And then he will perform his ritual burrow that allows him to move through the ground.
I love it.
To escape.
I think that would be very, very appealing to Saint Daphne as well. Digging some more to escape.
So it's almost like he's getting out by going deeper.
I love it. This is a risk roll. David, Amanda, Mads, what could go wrong here?
Though the saint might have liked this under normal circumstances, this isn't what she wanted now, and you'll anger the saint.
Keep it simple. You just suffocate and die.
There's actually underground tunnels, maybe made by creatures of some sort, and you will find yourself in one of those tunnels, possibly with one of those creatures.
Anything to add?
I don't have a worse suggestion than trying to.
Let's talk about your dice. Gaspar, do you have a relevant skill?
Let's take a quick look here.
Paths.
Paths or coordination? Yeah, coordination, not so much paths. Yeah,
Paths sounds good. Yeah.
He has an idea of the route he wants to go, right?
You have your light die. I'm going to, let's talk about the second die, Devil's Bargains. A reminder, this is something that will happen no matter what. And my offer is this. You will see the true nature of Saint Daphne, no matter what.
Mine was similar. The creature masquerading as Saint Daphne will reveal itself.
Yeah, those are, I think we can make both of those work if you want to go that route, Rob.
I'm assuming it's masquerading, although I don't think Gaspar thinks that.
Yeah, Gaspar doesn't think that, and who knows? It may be, who knows?
You discover the cult. You discover the cult of Darawan in a way that you didn't even expect.
That's intriguing. Three offers.
I want to
two,
take
really.
I want to take both. Yeah. I think I'll go with the idea of seeing the true form of the saint.
Very good. You have 2 light. You have to do a dark because of burrow, so roll risk 2-1.
Okay.
Three light is high. That is a fail.
Yeah.
You can add a dark die to try again.
I guess that would make sense. So risk 2-2.
Yep. Dark is high and it's a 6, which means your ruin is going up. You are now at 5 as well, but you have a full success. We'll come back to this scene in a moment. I'll check in with Laura. Laura, you are following the shadowed path. You get a little ways away from the group, and you know you're getting closer to the cathedral. How do you know you're getting closer to the cathedral?
The wind blowing through the trees has a haunting sort of ethereal quality to it. It's sort of like the wind blowing through pipes on a pipe organ.
You are joined by Darius, and she says, "Look, my daughter." And she directs your attention to a little clearing. And stepping out into the clearing is a colossal stag covered in jade-colored moss fur. It is 15 feet high at the shoulder, with a rack of razor-sharp antlers overgrown with moss and lichen. Its nostrils spew clouds of foul-smelling spores. 15 feet high at the shoulder means with its antlers, it probably stands a good 20, 25 feet tall. It's enormous. She says, will you go back and warn your companions of the terror that is approaching their position, I wonder? Or will you race to the cathedral?
My lady, I see no terror here, just a beautiful, wondrous sight. Yes, I'm going to the cathedral.
Make a reduction roll. So the new rule, not what the die roller says, is you got a 6, so your ruin does go down, but the others know that you could have stopped this, or at least warned them, and this is your fault somehow. But she says, good, good. We're very close. Back at the bloated, mushroom-covered treasure hunters, Torum is yelling at Kel to get the fuck out of there. Torum is getting ready to run. Kel, what are you doing?
Instinctually, he begins his fault ritual, but this time he's aiming it for Torm's knees.
No.
So he can get ahead of him.
I love it. Let's have the reduction roll. It might be a contest roll. We'll see how this goes, but let's just have the reduction roll for now. You got a 1, so your ruin is going down, and Torum is somehow not aware that you have fucked with his knees or are trying to. But
yeah, maybe it hasn't worked yet.
Yeah, like you just give me the scene, Torum. Like, what's happening? Like, do you fall down or something? Like, what is it?
I think Kel is like preparing to do this thing. I think that Kel's going to like attack the creatures, and I'm like don't do it. And I grab Kel's hands. I'm like, no, we just have to go. Come on. And I like start to pull Kel in the direction away, and then I start moving away. And I suppose Kel could resume.
Yeah, well, I think maybe you just feel like your knees buckle and your legs get knocked out from under you and you fall to the ground. I'm not going to make the ritual roll or anything. It might be a contest roll if you knew what Kel was doing, but I don't. But because you don't, Kel, you can get away. Torum, you've got to deal with the creatures via risk roll. So what do? Kel is running, and you're down on the ground, being surrounded by these 3 as they're bearing down on you.
I mean, so like, are my legs broken? Can I get up and run?
I don't know. I don't think it's all that. I think you can still try to get away.
I think the ritual was kind of like messed with, like when you're grabbing him.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It wasn't completely like him cracking it open. It was basically like he was able to get this part, but then it was kind of fiddled with. Yeah. So it's not a complete break as he would normally do.
Okay. Yeah, then I'd probably just scramble up and run after you.
Torum, you make the risk roll. Kel, you get away free and clear. Everyone, Rob, Amanda, Mads, what's going to happen if Torum should fail?
he's going to get overwhelmed by the monstrosities, and to add insult to injury, they're going to plunge their mushroomy hands, fungi-ridden hands, into your already insect bulging wounds to make you one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say that something similar, like they get a new member of their party, essentially.
I was
was
also going to
thinking-
say something similar, but I can't top how grotesque that is. That's wonderful.
I was thinking that the monstrous Thorum replaces him in.
Oh, that's good. I love it. I think David will play that. Okay. Do you have a relevant skill here, Torm?
Strength, I think, is my relevant skill.
I love it. Devil's Bargains. My Devil's Bargain is going to be, no matter what, you will get this fungus condition, this disease, whatever it is. Even if it's something you account for in your epilogue, it will happen.
I think I'll put forth, yes, you will get this fungus disease, but it is going to act like, what is that type of fungus that takes over ants?
Oh,
The
like a
cordyceps?
zombie. Yeah,
Cordyceps,
Yeah.
the zombie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to act not completely. It's not going to completely take you over because it's just a little fungus and you're a big regular sized person. But I think it is going to affect your decision-making skills
Well, then with the bugs
and possibly
inside you
movement.
too, like what does that mean? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Two great offers so far.
So basically, it seems to be like some sort of sympathetic magic going on between you and your brother. So whatever happens with the fungi with you is going to happen to him in jail.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking maybe that you're not able to destroy these things, but they'll just continue to dog your steps from now on.
Yeah, I want to just rephrase Mads's offer so that it, as a Devil's Bargain, I would probably rephrase it to be, no matter what your brother experiences, whatever happens to you, right? So. You could also reject them all.
Yeah, I heard fungus, and fungus chases you. So I think I'll just avoid. I'll do my best to avoid the fungus and roll 1 and 1.
1 and 1. Take it away.
Here we go. Hey, we did it.
6 life. Torm, go ahead and describe your escape.
Yeah, I just freak out when my knees buckle and the lumbering creatures are coming after me, tapping their parchment and mumbling things, and I just scramble on all fours for a moment and then manage to regain my feet and run as fast as I can after Kel.
Fantastic. Gaspar, you got a full success as well. Describe your escape.
Yeah, I think Gaspar we just see him look up toward what he thinks is the saint and sink down into the mud. You know, it starts to enter his mouth and his nose and eventually covers up the top of his head.
As you look up at the saint, you see what the saint really is. It is a mummified creature, the bones interwoven with lichen and moss and tree root. And the shovel is quite rusted. It is not golden. But please describe your escape from the sucking mud.
Yeah, I think Gaspar just kind of gives himself to the depths of the earth in this moment, and is able to move through it. And the next thing we see is some distance away in the forest, almost an eruption of worms and beetles come bursting to the surface of the soil, and they kind of, as they spread out and fall away, we see the body of Gaspar underneath. He's now lost all of his clothing, his equipment, everything. He's just been kind of reborn out of the soil and the creatures of the soil.
Gaspar, you are now at 5 Ruin as well. When you come out of the mire, your feet are fully fused into hooves, and your hands have become just 3 fused together digits. And you even feel pressure on your forehead as 2 little nubbins try to break through. And you will also see this titanic, moss-colored stag walking through the forest, moving toward the position of Torum and Kel. You can go back and warn them, or not.
I think definitely not. Although, yeah, Gaspar was encouraged that Kel seemed to be welcoming the attentions of these spiders. He knows that Torum doesn't trust him and even despises him.
Make a reduction roll.
Nope, that's a 6.
So your ruin goes down, but Torum and Kel will know that you also sent the stag to their position. Betrayal all around, but you make your way deeper into the gloaming mire. Torum and Kel, let's just have a brief moment of the 2 of you catching your breath as you have escaped the bloated treasure hunters. Roleplay.
Kel staggers his way to a nearby gnarled tree and he's gasping. He's looking down. The sight of those monstrosities still like dancing in his vision, and realizing that he had tried to betray his companion, and wondering why he's now so worried about it.
I think it's worse. I think it takes so long for Torum to catch up that you think that it worked for a while. You think that you succeeded. And then the bushes burst apart. You moved fast.
You're all right.
I don't know what happened back there. My legs, I don't know. You moved faster than I thought that you could, though. I'm glad I was able to keep up.
Yes.
I think we lost him. I think we lost Gaspar, too.
Yeah.
But no harm there. He might have more traps around here for us, though.
I don't think it's him.
I'm sure Laura fell into one of them. We'll never see hide or nor hair of her.
This forest, tis a cursed place. We knew that. You knew that.
Forest is a bad place because bad people make it bad. There's nothing here in the forest, nothing but us, and the things that Gaspar sets against us.
Okay, this is where Kel is going to thump your chest and be, for some reason, a man. You chose. I chose. We are all bad, not just Gaspar, not just Laura, not just me. You are also to blame. And if we're going to get through this, you need to acknowledge that right now. There is something coming. You felt it too. There is something very large coming.
Something Gaspar sent. And now you look in your own heart and your own mind, and you deny that he did not send it to us.
I can't.
And so you hear heavy hoof falls on the soft earth. You see the rustling of the cypress treetops, and you see the titanic stag covered in moss so that it looks like it has jade-colored fur, breathing noxious fumes, and with a rack of antlers so big it could easily use your bodies as decoration. It appears in the clearing, towering over you. Kel, the beast does, in fact, bear the ill will of Gaspar, perhaps just symbolically or figuratively, but you can tell that Torum is right. How do you know?
He can see the gleam of emerald spiders in its antlers.
Interesting. Torum, you can tell that you are correct about Gaspar, but also Laura has betrayed you, and the creature brings a nimbus of Laura's betrayal about its body. What is it?
It materializes out of darkness, just as her night walk would function.
It lowers its horns, scrapes its hoof along the ground a few times, and charges forth. One swipe will skewer you dead. Kel, what do you do? Kel, you're also still entitled to do reduction rolls, by the way.
He may actually do something right for a change. He stands his ground, and he's going to fault the ground at the stag's feet to try to knock it off balance, something.
Very dangerous, but I love it.
His last ditch. Yeah.
This is definitely a risk roll. What could go wrong? David, Rob, Amanda.
Obvious.
I think it's pretty obvious, but
Yes!
if there is other ideas.
Yeah. Your fault could trap you to the spot.
Any other thoughts?
I'm just thinking that the creature's so kind of fundamental to the forest that the fault is, extraordinarily destructive and does something fundamentally to the forest itself.
That could be a good devil's bargain too. All right, let's talk about dice.
Everything already sounds so terrible. I can't think of an extra thing.
Let's talk about dice. And yeah, I mean, I think what's going to happen is you're going to get skewered by the antlers, right? But let's talk about dice. Kel, do you have a skill that's helpful here? Performance, or we have rituals. So rituals is always very handy. Let's talk about the devil's bargain. Rob, do you want to offer what you said as devil's bargain?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Like the forest changes in some way.
Right.
I'm going to say that no matter what, the creature pursues you to the Flocculent Cathedral.
No matter what, this fault makes a more dangerous passage to the cathedral. You have to get around it somehow. And in that, yeah, it does just a more dangerous path.
No matter what, your magical energies, your reserves are exhausted.
Oh, that's pretty good. Do you wish to take any of these offers, Mads? David had good luck rejecting them. Maybe you will too.
But basically, I mean, like if I don't, and it's like I fail, then it's gonna skewer me. So
yeah. So it's just whether you're going to get 1 light die or 2 light die, basically.
devil's bargain to see, well, what it's going to look like if it pursues me all the way to the Flocculent Cathedral. If I can manage to pull this shit off.
2 light dice and 1 dark die for the ritual. Risk 2 harm. It is 4 dark. Dark is high, so you have to stop. You succeed, but there is a complication. The complication, quite simply, is that the 2 of you are going to get split up in the escape. But otherwise, describe your magic and how you 2 escape. Actually, hold that thought. Check in with the others for a moment. Laura, visible through the trees are glints of silver and jade. You can hear hymns in the voice of the fen, in the voice of the gloaming mire. You have reached the Flocculent Cathedral. The cathedral is actually a natural grove of massive, tightly packed trees, utterly overgrown with thick layers of moss and lichen that are many feet thick. They encrust the tiny gaps between the boughs, but you can just make out, if you look between them, inside this natural cathedral, you can just make out a smooth altar of meteoric iron, a delicately wrought silver candelabra, intricate statues that make up the stations of the saints. There is a heavy tome bound in verdant green leather, banded in intricately worked copper, resting on a lectern near this metal altar. And all around it are stone pews draped in thick moss, decadent and somnolent. There is no doorway into the cathedral. There are only 2 ways into the cathedral. Up to the bell tower and then down into the cathedral. Or there is a pool that feeds the cathedral's well. You can swim up into the cathedral. Gaspar, you will enter the near space and see all of this as well. You might even be peering through the gaps when you see around the corner Laura. And Laura, Darius will remind you, you must reach the cathedral first. You must get inside first. Laura, which way do you go?
Laura runs to the side of this glistening pool and scoops up a handful of the water and puts it to her mouth to feed to this slug. And as sort of a honoring the cathedral, honoring this thing in her mouth, she hauls off anything she has that is metal or would weigh her down. So she is in very light, like underclothes, and looks up at this astoundingly beautiful and horrific cathedral, looks back at the stag and how terrifying it is, takes a deep breath and dives in.
Gaspar, Laura is trying to reach the cathedral before you. And if you're okay with that, you can just not react in any particular way. But if you wish to race Laura to reach the cathedral first, we can do a contest roll to see who wins. But it's up to you.
Yep, I think Gaspar, as he sees Laura prepared to dive there, bursts out of hiding and rushes for the pool, but also as Laura dives in, Gaspar snuffs out all of the nearby light.
I love it. Let's have a contest roll to see who between the two of you reaches the interior of the cathedral first. Contest roll, that might be in the reference sheet. Let's see if it is. It is. When treasure hunters act against each other, compete, or want to inflict harm on each other, first agree what's at stake. Do we agree that what's at stake is which of you gets into the cathedral first?
Yeah, I don't think Gaspar's trying to hurt Laura per se.
Very good. Now you each will gather one light die if your occupation or background gives you an advantage. You only get one light die, even if multiple skills would apply. You get another light die for each point of ruin you currently have. You take one dark die if the contest is inherently dangerous. And then you take as many other dark dice as you wish. Then you roll them and you count all the sixes to see who wins. But each dark die that comes up a 1 will increase your ruin by 1. So let's go character by character first. Gaspar, do you have any skills that would help you in this matter?
I think maybe paths in knowing the quickest and surest way to the heart of the cathedral.
I love it. You get 4 more light dice because of Ruin 4. So you're up to 5 light dice currently. And then I think this is going to be dangerous just because it's, no matter how you get in, it's going to be dangerous, either climbing or swimming. And then
I think by dint of the fact that I'm using a ritual, it would be the right thing to do to take another dark die at least.
No, you only have to take 1 if it's inherently dangerous. That's it. So you're up to 6 light, 1 dark, and you can add as many other dark as you wish. You can decide.
I'll add another dark.
Just 1.
I'll add another dark to honor the ritual. So,
so you don't have to roll yet. Let's just get the dice pool ready first. Laura, because you might want to add more dark dice if Laura adds a bunch. So, Laura, let's talk about your skills. Do you have a relevant skill?
Well, my occupation is assassin, so stealth and murder and misdirection, dodging attacks, dodging what people are doing. Yeah.
I'll take it. And then how many ruin do you have currently? 3?
I have 3 ruin.
So you're up to 4 light dice. I think you get a dark die for the inherent danger. And then how many other dark dice do you want to add?
Could you remind me again what's going to happen with adding more dark dice?
You're looking for 6s. But if any of the dark dice come up 1, you get 1 extra. You get 1 ruin for each one that comes up 1. So you can add quite a few and be okay.
Give me one moment. I'm thinking about this. I'm a statistician, so I gotta think
There you
about that.
go, right? You have an advantage here, probably.
I'm also, I mean, this is Trophy Dark. Gonna risk, no reward. Okay,
Yeah, go for
I'm
it.
going to add an additional 3 dark dice.
So your total would be 4 light and 4 dark.
4 dark.
And Gaspar, you're on 5
6.
light and 2 dark.
Yeah.
You want to add any more dark?
How many are you rolling, Amanda? 4.
I'm rolling 4 of each. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go up to 4 dark as well.
So you're rolling
5, 4.
5, 4. Let's have yours first. Risk 5, 4. Okay, so you got 2 6s and one of your dark dice is a 1. So your ruin goes up by 1, but you have 2 6s. Amanda, go ahead and roll yours. Amanda got no 6s, and one of the dark dice is a 1. So ruin goes up by 1. Gaspar, you will win the contest. We'll come back to that. Think about what the contest looks like, both of you. Kel, please describe your and Torum's escape from the stag.
He knows this is the biggest fault that he's ever tried before, and it's so important. He has literally tossed off his gloves and just basically, as it's charging, I mean, he's splaying his fingers out as much as possible. I mean, if there's any cobwebs left or anything like that, I mean, it's like he's almost using it for some kind of extra, like, infusion, and then he's bringing his fingers together, and then it's not just a simple crack anymore. So when he does this, he will pretty much try to quake the ground in front of the stag. And when he cracks his fingers open and then spreads them out, I mean, it is literally creating a shockwave in front of the stag, knocking the stag off its path, and then knocking Torum and Kel apart because of the aftershock from doing so. He doesn't see where Torum goes after the aftershock.
Torum, you can describe your escape.
Yeah, I think the fault separates us, and I hide for a moment. I very quickly like use my clay ritual to like become one with a tree, just carve out an area for me in the tree and like hide in the trunk and wait for the stag to disappear as it pursues after Kel, who did this an incredible magic that's attracting attention.
And everyone is split up now. Gaspar, let's just have a little bit of narration of the how you win the contest. So what's going on here?
Yeah, I think as Laura dives into the pool, Gaspar conjures this darkness. It's almost like black mist creeping in from the trees around, and the lights go out, and in the darkness he stumbles his way forward on his cloven hooves and crawls into the pool first and drags himself down into the center into the entrance to the cathedral.
And Laura, how do you know that you are not going to reach it first?
I see Gaspar. I jump into the pool first, but I see Gaspar moving with the speed of something completely unnatural. And as he goes by, it's almost like he's got the sheen of swimming bugs over him. And even then, just watching him as he goes, there's no way I can catch up. But that's okay. I'm still going to get there. There's still time. There's always time.
And so passes ring 4. Let's take a 5-minute break. Ring 5. Gaspar, you climb up out of the well near what is the main sept of the cathedral. The well is in sort of a transept on the side. And it is as I described earlier. It's not a building at all. It's a bunch of tightly packed trees that form cathedral-like shape. And there are pews draped with moss. There's a silver candelabra with sort of several silver candelabras. They're all lit. An altar of meteoric iron. And a lectern near the altar with this large book bound in verdant leather. What do you do?
I think with a quick glance behind him to see if he did indeed beat Laura here, Gaspar starts to slowly walk up toward the altar to take a look at this book.
Yeah, you did beat Laura. You have time. And do you open the book?
Yeah, I think Gaspar almost crawls forward and raises himself up once he gets to the altar and turns over the cover of the book.
You can feel a warm hand on your shoulder. Like a beam of sunlight. A hot day. And you hear the voice of Saint Dauphine behind you. She says, "You and I both know that the greatest treasures of this world are found in the earth, are found in the ground. And here's when you will see that toward one end of the cathedral, there is a stone door with a little structure, basically, with a stone door. The only thing that's like made of stone, like masoned work. And you hear her voice again. The crypts below the cathedral. But there is only one way to open them. And she steps in front of you now and turns the book open to the appropriate page. The page in question has no writing on it. It is just soaked in blood. There is only one way to coax it open. There is only one way to gain access to that most sacred of trenches. You must soak the loam with blood.
Of course. And Gaspar just looks around looking for checking his surroundings, looking for a good place to hide.
And Saint Delphine is very helpful in this regard. She directs your attention to a gap in the trees that make up the structure, just big enough for you to fit into, and just close enough to the lectern that with a few paces, a few quick steps, you can reach someone standing there. Laura, you eventually make your way out of the well. You see everything as I've described it. The book is even closed back up, but you do not see Gaspard.
I think this sets Laura on edge. He's in here. He's in here somewhere. Is it dark enough in here to do any night walking?
Well, there is enough shadow because of the light cast by the candles. So possibly, yeah.
I think she's going to, rather than go up to the lectern, she's going to dart off into the shadows and to do the ritual.
Oh,
And
very
just
interesting.
look around, trying to spot where Gaspard has got off to.
If you find Gaspard, what are you going to do?
Don't worry about it.
It might be a contest roll then.
Oh yeah, it probably will be. Yeah,
So what are
I
the
plan to
stakes?
use my occupation and
Yeah.
some of my skills.
So are we agreeing on the stakes then, that you were trying to kill each other?
Yeah, I think so. You okay with
Mhm.
that, Rob?
Yep,
Cool.
this is what it's all about.
You might as well go for those big die pools then, because if you lose, you get murdered. Let's talk about dice. We'll start with Laura. Laura, you have stealth and murder, so I think regardless, you're getting your first light die. Murder being the, or both of them really coming into play quite a lot. And then you have 4 ruin, so you have 4 more light dice. So you're up to 5. You get 1 dark because of the inherent danger. How many extra dark dice would you like to add?
Five.
We're looking at a die roll of 5, 6. Rob, let's make your Gaspard's pool. Do you have a relevant skill?
I don't think I do. And also Gaspard is, no longer has any weapons or anything apart from the vermin that are secreted about him in various ways.
You do have 5 ruin, however, so you have 5
Yes.
light dice as well. And you get 1 dark. How many more extra dark do you want to add?
I've got to watch it here because 1-1 is the end of me, right? So
Oh yeah, but you will not get murdered. You will just be lost to the forest.
I think I'm just going to go with 2 dark.
Okay, so 5, 3.
5,
so
2. Oh, 5, 3. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 5, 3 and 5, 6. So let's see how that goes. So
I think we both hit 6 ruin.
you both
Yeah.
hit 6 ruin, but Gaspard wins. Gaspard does.
Yes.
Laura's the one who gets murdered. So we'll come back to this though. Fine trophy dark ending for those 2. Let's go to the other 2. So Torum, back in Barstool prison, your brother has been put in a very small, tight cell. It's very, very dark, and he's enclosed in it. And as you are in your enclosure, you can feel his terror. Or maybe it's something else. How do you sense him?
I think we're twins, so we have that link, And I think I'm even like talking to him in my mind, like, calm yourself. There's nothing to be afraid of in here. It's just dark. It's just close. It's just you and me.
Except it's not just you and him. It's also the bugs crawling underneath your epidermis. How can you tell that? How do you experience the bugs differently than he does?
I mean, I think they're different kinds. Mine are parasites that cause distress to me. The bugs that are inside of him are the Barstool like pragmatic tracking bugs and things like that they would have intentionally implanted on him. So the symptoms are very different. Mine I could probably get out if I dug under my skin. There's not a chance he could get out because they're resting at like the nape of his neck, in like right in the base of his brain.
Thank you. Kel, you reach the Flocculent Cathedral. Filthy, exhausted. Everything is as I've described it. There are two ways in, the bell tower or the pond up through the well. What do you do?
He's not much of a climber. He's going to look at the pool and think about taking a dip. Before he does, he strips off his jacket and his shirt and proceeds to put on the tattered remains of the swirling court shirt that he had. And as he's removing his clothing and trying to put on the tatters, you can see the remains of whip scars on his back and his wiry but still frail body. And he proceeds to take a dive into the pool to get into the cathedral.
You only get a few feet when you feel something tug you from behind. Something has hooked your shirt, and you are easily hoisted out of the water. In fact, you find yourself flying backwards out of the water as the stag raises you up on its antlers. You're very high in the air, tangled up in the antlers. The creature just snorting its venomous, poisonous snort, flecked with water. And we'll come back to that in a moment. But I do want you to make a ruin roll right now. Keeping it together with 3. Let's cut back to the interior of the cathedral. Laura, give us the initial bit of the scene here, this cat and mouse that you're playing with Gaspar.
Laura waits quietly. This is what she does. This is easy. Waiting for any little bit of movement, anything indicating where Gaspar might be. And eventually she sees it. A little bit of shuffling in the trees, something moving slightly, and she knows exactly where he is now. She quietly makes her way through the shadows, weaving in between spots that she can get through, pulling out a knife, a very, very sharp, glinted silver knife, trying to sneak up on Gaspar. And when she gets within a couple of feet of him, things go sour for Laura.
Indeed, Gaspar, pick it up.
Yeah, I think Gaspar's becoming impatient. He didn't expect Laura to be onto his ruse so quickly, and he gives away his location with his shuffling and muttering to himself, and Laura starts to stalk toward him, and just as she's getting close to him, he leaps from cover toward her, just with his hands reaching toward her neck, and they struggle and wrestle together to the floor, Laura's knife flashing. And she's better, more skillful than him by far, and quicker and lither. But she's maybe taken a little off guard by the things that start to crawl from Gaspar, the huge centipede that runs along his arm and twines itself around her neck, and the beetles that start to gnaw at her flesh, and Gaspar's fingers digging into her throat.
And you hear the grinding of stone on earth as the crypt door opens, and shining and radiant Saint Daphne beckons you to enter to you.
Yeah, I think once Laura is disposed of, Gaspar is hunched over her with his arms still around her neck, and he looks toward the entrance to the crypt, and his body just falls apart into this mass of bugs and creatures that burrow into the ground right through Laura's body and down into the earth, heading for the crypt.
Good. Kel, as you are strung up in the antlers of the titanic stag, your arms spread, hoisted in the air, the Flocculent Cathedral in front of you, you see rising up on the other side of the cathedral, enormous and shining, an image of Kalesha with three faces hovering in place over her glowing arms and torso. How can you tell in this moment that the stag is a creature of Kalesha?
The antlers take on the aspect of the floating robes. They are no longer holding him up and hoisting him up in the air, but they actually turn into things that are helping him float. And he feels his arms go free, but he's still able to stay suspended in the air. And as an offering in this space, he literally performs his voice ritual where he's able to bring his hands to his mouth, breathe in, and then spread it out, and then his voice carries over the Flocculent Cathedral, singing the song that he had heard Laura sing. So, what feels like so very long ago. But this time, instead of being a very soft voice, it is sound that carries over and around the cathedral.
Torum, you are drawn by this singing, by this song. It leads you directly to the Flocculent Cathedral. You see Kel floating in the air, the antlers cradling him, suspending him, his voice carrying out over the place. Make a rune roll first. How do you feel? What do you do? You got a 2 for people watching the video.
I think it seems that Kel has found some way to pacify the creature by singing to it. I don't want to disturb that, so I'm going to kind of move around to the far side of the cathedral and approach the structure of it, and try and reshape myself an entrance into the side.
Very good. There's nothing pressing here, so I don't need you to do a roll. You can take the time that you need to make it happen. Just describe that.
It's irreverent. It's not beautiful. It's just completely practical and quick. This ugly hole in the side of the cathedral, just big enough for a man to worm his way through. And Torum worms his way through as the forest worms its way through him so he can get inside.
When you get inside, you see standing in the center of the place, really kind of looming over, you see St. Fiona with her woodcutter's axe. She's glowing. And she says, just as you must work diligently to cleave an ancient tree, each whack careful, deliberate. The patience, deliberation, the caution has led you here. You did not rush, you did not scramble. You diligently hacked away at the trunk. And now you have achieved all you hope to achieve. Almost. There is but one thing left to do in order to acquire the riches beneath this cathedral, in order to enter the crypts beneath, in order to buy your brother's freedom. You must spill the blood of another. And you see now that there is an axe, silver and shining, laying on the altar of meteoric iron. You might also notice what's left of Laura's body on the ground and no sign whatsoever of Gaspar. Spill your blood quickly, my child, or you will miss out on the treasures. What do you do?
I think I attempt to see if Laura's remains will suffice.
They will not.
Yeah.
The bugs have already started to make her blood black and hardened.
Yeah. Like, I start calling out, like, challenge to Gaspar, like, show yourself.
There's no reply.
I just
you hear the singing of Kel loud, echoing through the trees that make up the Flocculent Cathedral.
Yeah, I think I take my woodcutter's axe and I plant it in the wall of the Flocculent Cathedral, and I put on, like, my wood cutting gloves, like I'm getting ready to do some serious chopping. And then I pull it out, and then I pick up the silver axe, and I stand in the middle of the cathedral waiting to see if Kel arrives.
Kel, do you?
Do I?
The way is clear. Or you can turn away. I'm going to go to Epilogues.
I have a wonderful idea. He finishes the song. And as he's finishing the song, it's almost like the stag will lower the antlers and almost gently, like, place him up in the bell tower. And in the bell tower, Kel decides to make one final act. A performance of his very short lifetime. Besides the song, of course. And he proceeds to concentrate his thoughts speeding to the center of this flocculent cathedral where he thinks that the weakest point is. He can feel the podium of this book, the center that everyone seems to have fought over. And it's no longer a drive of getting to the swirling cord anymore. He feels he has the status. He feels he has the measure of what's happened. So, in the bell tower, in the bell, his concentration goes to what he considers the center of the Flocculent Cathedral, and he does a final fault to bring the cathedral down upon itself.
Torum, are you okay with that, or are you going to resist?
I mean, I don't know how I can resist. I'm just trying to challenge Kel. If it becomes obvious to me that Kel is above me, I'll begin shouting challenges and things. I want to have a straight up knockdown drag out fight, because that's the kind of guy Torum is.
And that's
But
not how Kel is at all.
exactly. You're into performance and trickery and betrayal. Like you could probably get the better of Torum here, but Torum is strong.
I mean, we can do a contest roll and set stakes at whether the cathedral comes down or not, or we can set some other stakes when maybe one of you's dead by the end or something else. Or we can just epilogue there. And
Yeah, I think the stakes, if we're gonna have a contest, Torum doesn't care if the cathedral comes down. Unless that it means like he gets killed by it coming down. If the contest is like one of us is dying, is that what Kel is trying to accomplish?
No, he's just
Or-
bringing it all down. He doesn't care anymore. It's like he's done.
you would
He's
just be collateral damage in that regard.
Oh yeah. It's like this is the best and biggest stage. That's how he's thinking right now.
Yeah. Then yeah, I don't know if that's quite right as a contest, because I'm not actually trying to oppose you in that way. But if I
I
can
mean,
give
unless
up to you,
unless there's a way for you to race up and try to
yeah,
Yeah,
if
you
I
can
can
do
get
that
up to
me.
you,
yeah.
okay, yeah, if there's a way up, and I know you're up there, I'll come up to you shouting the whole way like I'm coming for you.
I love it. So then that feels like stakes. Like you want to spill Kel's blood and Kel wants to bring the cathedral down. Perfect.
Mhm.
Let's talk about dice. We'll start with Kel. Kel, you have performance. So you have your light die. You get 4 more for a ruin of 4. So you have 5 light dice. You get 1 dark die for the inherent danger. So you're up to 5, 1. How many more dark dice do you want to add?
So I already have 1 dark die, right?
Yeah, 5, 1 so far.
I will add 3. So 5, 4.
5, 4. And Torum, you have strength, which I think will help you get up to the tower quickly. And you have 4 ruins, so you're at 5 light as well, and 1 dark. How many do you want to add?
I'll roll the same number.
Okay, so this is 5, 4 then. By all means, let's take it away and see how it goes.
So how does it? I'm sorry.
It should be risk 5, 4.
Okay. All right.
It's not a risk roll, but that's how the die roller works.
Darn.
So Kel is the winner, but Kel's ruin goes up by 1, but that's okay because Kel's at 4, so that puts Kel at 5. And so he is the winner. You are not going to be able to kill Kel here, Torum, but give us the first part of the scene, Torum, as you're trying to do this. What does it look like?
Torum has a crazed look in his eye as he's making his way up this bell tower. I think there's actually like a ramp or something. He's just moving quickly, holding an axe in each hand, oversized axes in these gloved hands. And he's just shouting the whole way. He's like, Kel, I know you're up here. You kept telling me and preaching at me that I'm one of the bad ones. Well, I guess you were right the whole time. I guess you were right. This is what I have to do to free my brother. This is for Tomar. This is to get Tomar out of Barsul. Come here, Kel.
But Kel, you managed to bring the place down. What does it look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much where he's still infused with the energy from the stag. I mean, like, he floated down to the bell tower. I mean, this is grand performance here. So, I mean, and his gestures are large, so it's not just the little ritual anymore. It's the big one. It's the big time. So he's, literally like grand gesturing through and then snapping it, and then everything comes from his body. Like whatever magical energy he has to force down into the weak point of this cathedral, he is bringing it down. And the moss and the lichens and all of the verdancy of this cathedral is pretty much coming awash into like some sort of like weird greenery tsunami up from the ground as it starts to collapse inward on itself.
So it passes ring 5. We'll do epilogues. We'll take a little break, like a 3-minute break, just so you can think of your epilogue. When we come back, epilogue for your character only. Try not to implicate another character. And you can show us your character at any point in the future. Or if your character is lost to the forest, you can show us what that means. Or if your character's dead, you can show us what the absence of the character implies for the world. But let's take a quick break and we'll come back and do that. Epilogues. Whoever wants to go first, take it away.
I can go. I'm gonna say this is kind of like a movie with cameras and stuff because it's way easier as to describe it as the audience would see it, so to speak. We see the remains of the Flocculent Cathedral after it was destroyed by Cal. And as we watch it, our view pans in slowly to see a small trail of what looks like stones leading away. On closer inspection, it's pieces of bone and gristle just crawling with bugs. This trail leads away to a copse of trees. These trees are just huge with roots taller than the average person and in paper white bark. Resting against one of these roots is what remains, very little remains of the body of Laura. She has a knife in her half-eaten hand and a blackened rictus grin from where she sliced open her cheeks to carve out her own tongue. The beetles continue to burrow through her, what's left of her, and her legs are just like broken bone, picked clean and white. The bugs are working on her abdomen and organs, but their job is made a lot easier by a large cut and an empty cavity. On the tree root next to Laura, where she sits smiling, is a beautiful image, a beautiful painting in blackened inky blood, decorated in red, decorated in Laura's own intestines and organs, crawling in beautiful shimmering bugs. It is of a grand cathedral, and next to it, a horrifying stag with a crown of beetles. And that is Laura's grand masterpiece dedicated to this forest.
Fantastic. Ghoulish. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, I think among the wreckage of what was once the Flocculent Cathedral, these kind of moss-covered logs, as we look from a distance, we can see the kind of almost a weird shimmering. And as we move closer, we see that it's just alive with bugs and beetles and worms and rats and vermin of all sorts. And as we move closer and closer and closer, we can hear that the ground is just alive with them. And the only thing still standing is that stone entrance to the crypt, and somewhere down there, I mean, amongst all this kind of chittering, slithering, crackling movement is whatever is left of what was once Gaspar.
Thank you. Calatorum?
Somehow, amidst the collapse and wreckage and ruin of this cathedral, there you see some movement underneath mounds of dirt and moss. And it's Kel coming up from taking a gasping breath, just as he did when he was swathed in all of the cobwebs, but this time it's coming up from the verdancy of the forest and looking up at the sky in mingled relief and regret. And he sits up. He no longer has the tatters of the swirling court around his body, so he's shirtless. But when he rises and he looks at his hands, his hands are gnarled and burned, almost green and black, with not rot, but just overuse. He can still feel them, but he can see all the flesh is going to need a lot of time to heal. And he rises, and he makes his way slowly, ever slowly, outside of the forest, listening to the birds, watching the bugs, looking for life through the trees, and tries to make his way somewhere, anywhere. But not as he was. Hopefully as somebody completely different. He'll find his way. He'll be someone else for a time.
Thank you, Torum.
Some time past these other epilogues. This is a movie, it would maybe even be like a post-credit scene. We see the forest, and it's changed. The remains of the Flocculent Cathedral, all collapsed, are instead replaced with something like a log chapel made of the ruined trees. In that spot, somebody has been busy at work to make this happen. Somebody has exhausted themselves, put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then back in Fort Duran, you see a man. You'd recognize it as Torum, but he looks so different, so much more gaunt, but his muscles bulging from all of the work that he has been busy doing. A horrible scar running across his face from a tree that fell, or perhaps a cathedral of trees that fell. And he is selling a group of desperate treasure hunters on a place that he's heard rumors of in the forest, a flocculent chapel filled with treasure.
I love it. Fabulous. And that concludes the Flocculent Cathedral. Let's do stars and wishes. This will be for the entire 2 sessions. I'll kick off and say that I had a really good time. And I think this was probably, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is probably the best game of Trophy Dark I've had. This was really, really good. And I've played a lot of games of Trophy Dark, so hats off to you all for that. Everyone leaned into all the stuff on their character sheet, which I loved. The contest rules were fantastic. I love that. That's a new rule in the book that wasn't in the original game, right? And it's very welcome. It's a good rule. And yeah, the fucking just the ghoulishness of some of these endings was amazing. And yeah, and like I would watch the made for Shudder horror movie version of this game. So yeah, I love it. Hats off to you all. And in this context for wishes, I guess I don't really know what that would be since it's over, but I guess I just hope that we do get to play more Trophy as a group together in the future. So
Yeah, I've played, I don't know, 4 or 5 games of Trophy Dark and several of Trophy Gold now. And yeah, I think this really came together super well. I think it helped that we played together previously and we kind of have that trust between us that we can just screw each other's characters over and it's fine. that's a good thing to have. And I just love, I don't know, the quiet intensity Mads always brings to any scene, and Amanda's just like delight in really going for it when the time comes, and like Torum's outrage at Gaspar's betrayal, and yeah, it's all really fun. And I gotta say, the nest is probably the most fun occupation to really lean into. That's I had a good time with that. So yeah, thanks all around. It was a really cool two-shot session.
I've only ever played one other game of Trophy Dark, and it was the Flocculent Cathedral. And it was very, very different. But funny enough, at the end, there was a character who, at the end of it, in the epilogue, was the person getting people back to the Flocculent Cathedral. And I was like, this is just canon for the cathedral. And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful touch.
That was a great epilogue, yeah.
Oh, it was so good. Matt, I mean, Rob already said the intensity that you bring to your scenes, always just so good. I really loved the lecture that Kel was giving Torum about, no, this place really is spooky and all of that. But the singing to the stag and taking down the cathedral, those were amazing choices. I was so excited for that. So thank you so much. David, your dialogue, the way that you portrayed your Torum was just so perfectly desperate, and that was just a lot of fun. I really loved the blaming everything on Gaspar bit too, and leaning so heavily into that. That was wonderful. And the epilogue, again, like I said, it was perfect. It was so perfect. And I do want to watch this movie on Shudder. Rob, your whole character was amazing. Gaspar is so much fun. He was disgusting and full of bugs, and every choice you made was wonderful. And I couldn't wait to see what you were going to do next. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, if anyone was going to kill Laura, I'm glad it was Gaspar. Actually, I would have been glad for anybody. I just like drama. But and Jason, this is great. This was so much fun. I really liked the choice you made when you made the creatures that people were seeing, the future versions of themselves. That's always such a spooky thing to see in movies and stuff, and it really hit home here. I thought it was absolutely terrifying, and I loved it. Also, primo monster noises as always. Your monster noises are super creepy, and yeah, this was a lot of really dark, gross, spooky folk horror type things that I'm super here for. So thank you for that.
Again, thank you for yet again making my intro into a game like in freaking fucking tense. Holy shit. Rob, I always love your choices. You're just like so goddamn brilliant when it comes to the dark shit. And then Laura, I just think it's hilariously funny that you have murder as your skill, but you lost. What the fuck? But it was so good. I mean, like, your intensity with your artistry was, it really dug into the character, and I love that. I mean, like, for me, you guys know, I mean, like, I'm on the character. And then Torum, I mean, I said it in chat, and I'm like, Jack Torrance, fuck, oh my God. And I guess it was like the brilliance of the character being very committed to, like, you know, blaming it on somebody else and like scapegoating. And then I always enjoy our interaction together because, I mean, you give me so much material to work with. It's wonderful. I get that from all of you, of course, but I mean, like, you know, you guys know I have you indulge me in chewing up the scenery. I don't know why. And it's just, and it just makes the choices for the game just so much more intense. And I really enjoyed this. Again, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, you know, I knew it was going to get more intense, but I didn't know in what way. And then Jason, I mean, again, you know, as Amanda said, monster noises, Jesus. Playing the NPCs and the monsters is definitely a star plus, you know, world bursting stars for you for definite sure. And then you allow us to make the game, make the story as it is. And this was great. I mean, for a 2-shot, holy crap, what an experience. So I mean, that's what I got.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I've run the Flocculent Cathedral quite a few times at this point, and the one thing that like sometimes doesn't come out as strong is the way that the saints, if they are the saints, the way that the saints are like luring you to your doom, right? Like that doesn't always come out super strong. I mean, sometimes it does, but like it was really good in this one. We got to do all of the dangers in Ring 4, which was we got to do the mushroom men, the stag, and the saints. Like it was all of them, which was great. So yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. And yeah, I just want to kind of add that in because it I think the reason why I really loved this run of it is because we really did the Flocculent Cathedral, like everything that Jim wanted you to do, like we got done. But it was still, we made it our own story at the same time. So it was just this perfect marriage of like the incursion, the linear incursion structure plus the collaborative storytelling, and it kind of just all came together really great. So.
Yeah, I think the loom materials helped. Now that we had them, we could embrace the saints without all of us having to come up with every detail of them on the fly and adopt it. It's like we had for some of them like it was fun spot.
Those of you who looked it up like knew you had something to say, which was great. Like I thought that was really fun. And those of you who just came up with something, you know, on the spot, that was also good. Like it was a good, you know, mix, I think. But.
Yeah, I think that helped us get to the more saint focused outcome that Flocculent Cathedral could desire. So that was really neat. I loved everybody's characters. I thought that Jason did a very good job of guiding us away from one another when we needed to be away from one another. When it became apparent that betrayal was suspected and betrayal was known because of the way that the reduction rolls were going, that felt good. That was very, very well done. And that's like that's an important part. The betrayal is an important part of I think a good dark story, and it's sometimes difficult to pick that moment of when the betrayal needs to hit, and then the GM needs to do a good job of making sure that either the group can cope and move forward, or the group gets separated and can go forward. And I thought that happened in an excellent way. I agree. With whoever was saying like it was nice that we had the familiarity with one another because it let us all do that. That felt very good. I
agree completely. I think I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off, but I just to add to that, I think if this had been like a group like I normally run it, like where I just get like 4 random people from Discord, those are always really fun games, don't get me wrong, but I think that there's a little less hesitation. There's a little more hesitation with the PvP aspects, right? Which I don't think you all had at all, which I think is great. So anybody watching this video, just go for the PvP. It's great.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Trust your GM to handle it. Trust the contest rule, which is fantastic to make it happen. Yeah, that contest rule
trust play to lose,
some good,
right?
Does some good stuff. Yep. I liked the variation that we had on when we leaned into the lose for our character, because it's always good to have that kind of spread across the different rings for different characters, and the ruin kind of reflects, you know, the good time to do that. And I thought everybody did a wonderful time. Like I thought like Laura's ruin rose fast, and I thought, Amanda, you did a great job, like embracing, like, yep, I'm in, like I'm enthralled. Kel's and Torum's were slower. Kel was on the edge of it, but wanted to kind of seem like work with Gaspar and still figure this out, but kind of having this realization that like we're all bad, and trying to confront Torum, who's like the kind of was the holdout of like, no, like this is just the forest, like it's just a normal forest. It's these people, they're tricking us, because I think Torum has like this traitorous heart that he demonstrated in the end, as he came after Kel and set his trap for the next folks in Epilogue. So that happening and how it happened and when it happened, people kind of getting enthralled with the forest was really good. I really enjoyed how Gaspar was played by Rob. That it was kind of this understated thing. The nesthood was almost understated until it wasn't. But it was just like, this is just part of everyday life, and I embrace how wonderful my vermin are. And I'm just going to be struggling with you, and you'd probably get the better of me, but these centipedes start crawling on you and things like that. This thing that maybe you could almost forget all of a sudden just comes wriggling out.
And then I'm going to dissolve into a pile of bugs. Right?
Yeah. What a ending to that scene in the Flocculent Cathedral with the two of y'all. It's like the door opens. Guess who doesn't need doors? Gaspar. So good.
So perfect. Absolutely perfect, Rob. I mean, we can picture this as the Shudder movie. God damn it, we want to see this.
The Shudder original.
I want the A24 Blu-ray box set.
That'd be the great version, right?
We need to pitch it. We need to send this to Shudder. Shudder.
We won't be able to play it though. We can't play our characters.
Fantastic. That was really great. Any other stars and wishes before we go? Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.